Greetings, July 28th, 2015. I just recorded the first 2 rows of photos of Under the Wings art, and I noticed that the video wasn't filming, so I'm starting over again. The whole series has never been exhibited. About 40 plus works are framed now. The largest exhibits over the years have been about 20 to 22 works. So I also want to mention that the photographs are not representative of size. Some of the photos are quite small, like this one here, but the work is very large. It's 4 by 8 feet plus the framing. So I'm going to go through the whole series by title. A series began with this drawing here, the Murno Street trolley car in the Warsaw Ghetto, drawn November, December 1991. The wings were drawn on 2 consecutive visits at the Ornithology Lab at the University of Washington Burke Museum of Natural History. The second drawing was done that January '92, which is when I titled the series. It was called for many years Under the Wings of God. I've since shortened it to simply Under the Wings. Man with a tattered coat. The first at least 20 drawings, maybe more, drawn from Warsaw Ghetto photos. Child lifting head of man who died on the street. Under the Wings number 3, the only drawing with a butterfly wings. Child with cap. Old man praying, from a photograph of observant Orthodox Jews praying in a kind of secret, hidden synagogue or study hall in the ghetto. The synagogues themselves were forbidden. 2 standing children. Infirm boy with middle-aged woman in a pedicab. It's kind of like a rickshaw. I didn't draw the person pushing the divided vehicle that was standing behind them in the photograph. Young man with container helping old man to walk. 2 girls seated on the Warsaw Ghetto sidewalk, one appearing to be blind. Which brings us on to the 10th drawing here, which is quite large. It's 46 inches by 52 inches wide. It's called 3 Jews jumping from burning buildings during the time of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, which is like in April, May 1943. There are videos of individuals of a number of works in the series. There's at least 2 about this work, or one of which I did in early March when I gave a PowerPoint presentation. And there's an excerpt from the presentation taken at the Nottingham Liberal Synagogue in England with an audience mainly of children ages 6 through 9 and a few older kids, I don't know, ages 10 to 15. This is the first work where I didn't draw, aside from the one with the butterfly wings, where I didn't draw actual bird's wings. Woman fighter. After capture during the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, the first work with color, just a kind of a little bit here in the wing and in 2 sides of her collar on her blouse. A child seated on Warsaw Ghetto sidewalk. This is called Shema, S-H-M-A. It's kind of the most I don't know how to phrase it, kind of the most serious prayer in religious Jewish life. It goes like this: Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. In English, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Jews who were about to be shot, for example, would recite this to themselves silently or out loud, whatever. Let's say when they were being shot by the Einsatzgruppen forces in the western end of the Soviet Union, where over 1 million Jews were murdered that way. Child with soup plate. This is reproduced on the cover of Jewish Currents magazine around, I think, 2009. Children playing on Warsaw Ghetto Street, probably 1940 or 41. This is a fairly large work, very small photo. Aged girl standing next to boarded up shop sign with a child's drawing of a child on it. Two fighters after capture during the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, and it's subtitled the Hatikva drawing. Hatikva is the Israeli national anthem, and the lyrics of that are painted, drawn in gouache watercolor around the perimeter of the imagery. Child with waxed wings. This is the first mixed media work beyond ink and gouache. It has stitched on cord and waxed boat twine. Father and daughter. And Rubinstein, the Letts, L-E-T-S, that's transliterated from Yiddish, a mime artist in the Warsaw Ghetto. This is the first work I did portraying someone, a victim known by name. I had seen a card catalog card for him at the YIVO Research Institute and Library in New York on a visit in 1993. And the archivist librarian had someone pull the original photo they had from a vault, which I then ordered a print of, which they sent me in August of '93 when I did the drawing. He was murdered at the Treblinka death extermination camp in fall 1942. This is called Lebensraum, which is German for living room, subtitled The Lodi Eskimo Ice Cream Drawing. I was struck by the incongruity of the shop signage, which predated the creation of the ghetto as a concentration death camp. Lodi is Polish for ice cream, Eskimo ice cream. And growing up in New York, actually I've seen them in Seattle at least a couple of times over the years, Eskimo ice cream bars. It has a long history of ice cream. Mixed media, it also has twine and stitching on this old leather book cover there. The manicure shop sign of Hannah Bronstein. This is a large triptych. Each work is separately framed, beautiful wood framing, called Man with Tallis, or Talit. Tallis, Talit being Hebrew, is a prayer shawl for also Warsaw Ghetto. So these are all Warsaw Ghetto photographs so far. And the photograph actually was not wearing a talit, so a little bit of artistic license there on my part. And very large in terms of the wings. The total width of the triptych is, not including space that would be between them when installed and exhibited, is 134 inches. Another mixed media work, the first work I ever did with collaged on fabric. Somehow I managed to get through 7 years of college art studies without ever doing a collage. Well, I made up for it here. It's called Child with Quilt, with leaping or dancing kind of dogs or ponies. Smiling man with single wing. There's, I know one video up about this with a family who happened to be at the Seattle Central Community College exhibit in April 2013, the same time I was there, and I asked them if they had a favorite drawing among them, and they chose that one, so we talked about it. This is Giedel Lasky. She was about 5 or 6 when she was murdered at the Majdanek death camp. And her aunt, Hannah Lauber, now deceased, was a survivor of the Warsaw Ghetto, Majdanek, Auschwitz death camps as a slave laborer, and spent the last year of the war as a slave laborer at a munitions factory in Malchow, Germany. The photo of Giedel was taken when Giedel was about I'm guessing about a year old or so, which had been mailed to and onto and moved to the United States and Seattle in around 1928 or 29. When Hanna Lauber was liberated, she spent a year or so at a displaced persons camp in Sweden, and then because she had an aunt in Seattle, she moved to America and to Seattle. Mordecai Adalewicz, leader of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. There's a video up on YouTube of my talking about the original drawing of this with a class of fifth graders at the Unity Point Elementary School in Carbondale, Illinois in 1996. Check it out. I talk about the drawings of the baby cockatiels and the parent cockatiels in the bottom also. There should be at least one video up about the drawing of Giedel, I think from a presentation at Forfar Academy, a state secondary school in eastern Scotland, probably from a presentation in 2010 or 11. Okay, moving on. We're still old Warsaw Ghetto victims. Sesha Burston-Mandrulowska, believed to have been born in 1910 and believed to have perished during the time of the uprising in 1943. Her niece, now deceased, and great niece my age, in Seattle, from a photograph that the great niece loaned to me. This is the first life-size work in the series called Girl in Rags in the Warsaw Ghetto. The drawing is 40 inches wide by 78 inches high, beautifully framed. Last exhibited in 1998. Gotta get these up. Rachel Sirkin of Paris, a photograph given to me by her niece, who was a hidden child survivor. I'll mention about that. She's authored a book about her, how her life was saved hiding in the Castle School of the family of General Lafayette of American Revolutionary fame, as was her brother. And I knew the survivor, the niece of Rachel Sirkin, during years she lived in the same building as my mother did in Florida. The second life-size work, a companion piece to The Girl in Rags. It's called Bar Mitzvah Age Boy in the Warsaw Ghetto. It's 40 inches wide by 108 inches high, also beautifully framed. Laya Lederman and daughters Zosia and Hanna of Ostrowitz, Poland, from a photograph loaned to me by her granddaughter, who's a peer of mine around my age, who I had also met in Florida. This is called Everyone's a Zadie, portrait of Dudja Feig. And Dudja Feig was Elie Wiesel's beloved maternal grandfather, who Wiesel writes lovingly about in his first volume was an autobiography called All Rivers Run to the Sea. So I guess Rachel Sirkin would be the first work to portray a non-Warsaw Ghetto victim. They were from Ostrowitz, not in the ghetto, Warsaw, or not in the Jewish district of Warsaw, and he was from would have been Hungary, Romania, Signet, where Elie Wiesel hailed from. Man playing violin from a Warsaw Ghetto photo. This work was first drawn in 1993, but I didn't complete it until I think it was a year or two ago. It's called Claustrophobia and the Warsaw Ghetto, with the Judenrat issued identity card of Friedrich Zellmann. That's the man in the center here. The first mosaic drawing combo. This is also, I think this is about 7 feet high, I have to check. It's called Young Man with Sergeant David Armed Man in the Warsaw Ghetto. Leisure Letterman and his son Joseph of Ostrowitz And so he was the husband of Laya Letterman. They had 3 daughters and it was 4 sons. And everyone was murdered except for one daughter, who was the mother of the acquaintance friend of mine in Florida, who loaned me the photographs. So I've drawn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 family members in these 2 works, plus another family member in another work we'll see in a moment here. I have to get down on my knees here. This is Joseph Goldberg and Jacques Ben-Guigui. They were the drawing I copied done by Jacques Ben-Guigui, who was of Algerian Jewish parentage. Joseph Goldberg. They were both in the school orphanage in Izou in eastern France, and they were all deported on orders of Klaus Barbie, the Nazi Gestapo officer. All the children were murdered, as were some of the teachers and other staff. These 3 works are in progress here, awaiting their wings. I'm hoping to get to them sometime within a year or so, each drawn from a Warsaw ghetto photo. Okay, on to the largest work. So I believe this is number 42, the 4 by 8 foot work. It's called Shoah Dreams, depicts about 28 people, 28 or 29 wings, plus the interior of the Great Synagogue of Warsaw, an Italian Jewish wedding ring, the Lesko, Poland synagogue. My great-grandmother is depicted here. Bruno Schultz, the Polish Jewish visual artist and playwright here, and Felix Nussbaum, the only portrayal in the series inspired not by a photograph of someone who was murdered, by an artist's self-portrait. There are videos, at least one video up of this, from VHS footage I took when I was working on the wings at the Burke Museum. And one of the Letterman family sons is here, rather small to make out in the film, but 3 men standing in Warsaw Ghetto Street, one drinking from a glass. Triple portrait of Kamil Han of Telk, or Telts, T-E-L-C, Czechoslovakia. He was a first cousin of a Holocaust survivor refugee I was friends with in Seattle, named Alex Schwartz. And Alex and his now deceased and his wife Trudy was also refugee from Nazi Austria. When I visited Alex in Vienna in 1999, on my way to my first teaching trip to Israel, I saw the photograph of his cousin, which I was able to get a copy of. And Alex's mother herself was murdered at the Auschwitz death camp. This is, I think, the first work which kind of began a kind of major change, although there were certainly multiplistic imagery in Shoah Dreams and in the Kamil Han work, but really a departure from the singular kind of imagery of many of the black and white works, a person or several people with wings. So this is called Hitler's Yo-Yo, Zissel, the street musician, and Dietrich Bonhoeffer with honorary horns. It was reproduced on the as part of the cover art of the 2009 published CD album called Partisans and Parasites by with Daniel Kahn, an American klezmer musician in Berlin, with the group called The Painted Bird. So you can check that out on YouTube. This is, I knew it, I just went blank on his name. He shot a Greenspan, Herschel Greenspan. He shot a German diplomat in Paris. In 1938, the diplomat died, and that was the pretext for the Nazi rioting, pogroms, murders, arrests, and burnings of synagogues and Jewish businesses throughout Germany and Austria known as Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass. So it's called Herschel Greenspan with a Christmas cactus, and I forget the rest of the title. Something about a Jewfish. To look that up. There is at least one video up about this work. This is called No One's Came to Save Anna Plakier. Photo is not very good. There's at least a video up about it. Fairly large work. And Anna Plakier was a Polish-Jewish graduate in painting of the Academy of Fine Arts in Warsaw. She and her husband were both shot to death by Ukrainian SS troops in the Ukraine. This is called Italian Jewish resistance hero Eugenio Curiel, Castel Sant'Angelo, and my flying chi, Obi Juju Kenobi, looked on by Alex from above and below. So that's Eugenio Curiel here, Castel Sant'Angelo, Hadrian's Tomb in Rome in English, My Flying Chi, inspired by the title of a book I was reading by a Chebe called Things Fall Apart at the time I was working on the drawing. Alex being Alex Schwartz, the survivor refugee I know in Seattle, a linoleum block print I did based on one of the drawings I did of him when I went to see him in Vienna in 1999. Okay, up to work number 49. This is called New Hendlevy Nachne Chicken McNuggets. Homage to Dutch righteous person and teacher Joop Westerveel. There's at least one, maybe two videos up about this. There's a whole lot of different drawings from different time periods from my sketchbooks, kind of collaged on around the mat area and drawings elsewhere. Number 50, Gypsy Child in the Nazi concentration camp for gypsies in Halle, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, H-A-L-L-A, Germany. From a photograph I'd seen in the website of the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum, I had to order a print of it from the German National Archives in Koblenz, Germany, stipulating that I could not reproduce the photograph, but I could the art, of course. And there's a video up, at least one video up about that work. This is one of my favorite personal favorite works in the series, Robert Desnos. It's called Sorrows of Love with a longer title. He was French-Jewish surrealist poet, writer, wrote thousands of radio commercials, also did music and art reviewing, and was involved in anti-Nazi resistance in France, was in one of the camps in Germany, I forget, Bergen-Belsen or Buchenwald, died after liberation at Terezin did in Czechoslovakia. There's a wonderful two-page text and photo about Desnos in Anne Weiss's book, The Last Album, a wonderful book, Eyes from the Ashes of Auschwitz. This is also a very large work, Erwin Schulhoff, German-speaking Czech-Jewish composer of both kind of classical and modern music, died at a concentration labor death camp in Germany. And his works have been posthumously performed a lot in recent years and around the world, including by the Music of Remembrance group in Seattle. This is called Haggadah Ginsburg, Haggadah being the name of the ritual book used at the Passover Jewish holiday, and it portrays Leonie Ginsburg, who was murdered at a prison in Rome during the Nazi occupation. He was an anti-fascist intellectual activist and had been an academic. He was survived by children and his wife, Natalia, who became a well-known writer in Italy in the post-war years. She's now deceased. Sophie Scholl, a Protestant German student and member of the White Rose Group, murdered after a show we'd call Kangaroo Trial in American English, after having leafleted the University of Munich with leaflets criticizing the regime, as was her brother Hans and other students and one faculty member who was like 50 years old. This is also a very large work. It's called A Torah Jew in the Jewish district of Warsaw in 1937, inspired by a photograph of this legless Jewish man who had lost his legs in a pogrom in Russia 40 years earlier. The photograph taken by, I don't blank in his name, but there's a video up about this work. A famous European Jewish photographer who photographed European Jewish life around Central and Eastern Europe at great risk to himself in the years right prior to the war. This is called, sorry, I just went blank on the name. She was a Jewish girl from Rome who played the accordion. She died after liberation. I think it was at Buchenwald, or maybe it was Bergen, one of those camps in Germany. Her father had actually survived the war, was alive in Rome, and there was a photograph taken of her with American GIs. She was very sick. That was printed in papers around Europe. Her father saw it in Rome and naturally hoped for her recovery, but she didn't pull through. This is the second mosaic drawing. It's also quite large, called Life and Death in the Ghetto. And there is at least one video up about this in which I talk about the great ink spill catastrophe on the drawing there. This is the only study I did in this series. It's actually very small. It's like about 9 by 12 or so, as opposed to this, which is about 5 feet high. Photographs nearly the same size, based on a photo of a Jehovah's Witness prisoner of the Auschwitz death extermination and concentration slave labor death camp complex. The third mosaic drawing combo, Mira Steiner of Zagreb. There are several videos up about this, including I think 3 different parts taken of at a tour I gave at the University of Washington Hillel exhibit in 2013. Orthodox Jew under barbed wire, Olkusz, Poland, 1940. These are all very large mosaic drawing combo. And there are videos up about each of the mosaic drawing combos. Multiple amputee awaiting deportation. Loads, or Łódź in Polish. And there are several videos up about this work, including 1 or 2 taken in this past winter at Cascadia Community College in Bothell, Washington. On to last year's mosaic drawing combo, which is supposed to be published in 2 very large history of Jewish art books sometime this summer. My great-grandmother, my mother's father's mother, or my mother's paternal grandmother, called Zlata Barszewski of Białystok. She lived in the Jewish old folks home in Białystok. I have about 5 or 6 photographs of her. And this is the drawing when it was in progress in probably early mid-January of the mosaic drawing combo I'm working on currently. I'm actually doing the grouting right now. Pére Jacques, the French priest and righteous person whose story was told in Louis Malle's 1987 movie, Au revoir les enfants, a terrific film, one that's also very accessible for children and youth audiences. There's no violence in the film. There you have it, the entire, Under the Wings series. I can get to stop at 29:57. Okay, there you have it.